Entitlement, indeed. Hello, American. Welcome to the Glenn Beck program and to the Blaze. This is the network that you are building. We're going to talk a little bit about gun control tonight, but we are going to talk about something that is much, much bigger than that. I want to show you the difference between reality and fiction. In reality, we should be talking about the debt ceiling, because nobody's really talking about this. The Bundesbank, which is Germany's central bank, is now bringing back $36 billion worth of its gold that it has stored at the Federal Reserve in New York City for a long, long time, and the gold from France. The full faith and trust in the American system is dying, and so is the euro. Japan also has just set a 2% inflation target in a bid to fight deflation. This is a signal that inflation is coming, gang. The currency wars are beginning. And I think the move with Germany is to show that the euro is getting closer and closer to the death knell. Our kids are also killing kids in school. People are robbing stores and posting it up on YouTube so they can be famous. Our schools are failing us. They're not only failing us, they're indoctrinating our kids. Our churches are failing us, or the ones that are working are under attack. In Newtown, the big new conspiracy theory we talked about on the radio today is that didn't even happen. That was the government setting that one up. What is wrong with us? Let me show you reality now. This is what passes for reality in today's world. What are we watching? What are we watching on TV? Well, we're watching this. We are watching polar bears. Oh, on a lonely ice float, making sad faces because we're killing them all. Or you have this one. How about the partisan bickering over the Sandy relief bill that just passed the House? Or, if you want this reality, this one is really good. Oh, look at there. The president high-fiving children who wrote letters to the president about being safe in school, begging him, Mr. President, please, I'm 8, do something. Wow. I don't do what my 8-year-olds tell me what to do. I'm glad to see we have a president who does. The president dragged out little children, and let's be honest, they're human shields. They're human shields, they're flak jackets for his gun control ideas, which amount to 23 executive orders. They stand in direct opposition of common sense, history, statistics, the Constitution, individual rights, the will of the people, just about everything. But when you're about to stomp on the most treasured American values, there's only one way around that. Bring in the kids. If we were dirtbags, we'd play the progressive gang, and we'd drag out a bunch of kids, and we'd drag out the parents. And we'd have the parents tell America how those kids were saved by the parent having a gun and shooting an intruder. But we don't do that because we're not scumbags. I mean, geez, we couldn't even put a picture of the president in an airplane after 9/11. But this is the progressive way. Manipulation over merit. And they'll use anyone or anything they can. And they'll frame it as we're just keeping you safe, that's it. We don't want the guns to hurt you, we care. When someone has to protect their action by using children as shields, you know you're in trouble. And it's not just the policies. Because the Real News and Wilkow are going to cover all of the details about all of the details in this and what it means to you. So you want to keep it here tonight on The Blaze. We'll give you all of the coverage that you need. I will tell you that we went over them before we went on the air. And there's a lot of hype in that 23. At least that's the way we look at it right now. At least I do. But I've been focused on something else today. And we'll have more on this coming up next hour and the hour after that and tomorrow on the radio program. But I want to talk about more than just the policies. More than just the fact that he's using kids to justify executive orders. More than the fact that he just torpedoed the Constitution and made Congress completely irrelevant again. Because the world is changing, and it's changing fast. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about singularity. The singularity is here. This is something in technology. I gave a speech last night in Dallas, and I met with a bunch of people, and I don't know if they heard a word I even said. I have no idea. I tried to impress on them The singularity is here, and the world that you think you know is about to change dramatically overnight. Your friends will ask you, why are you talking about the singularity and all of this stuff? Good question. Why? Why is the question. People don't realize how far down the road we are in all subjects, historical, educational, political, cultural, financial. We're way down the road. When you have $16 trillion in debt, if you increase the interest rate, 9 goes to 50 trillion overnight. Remember, the same thing can be said. We didn't realize how far past the gates the progressive intruders were when we were talking about politics. We didn't realize how deep this problem really went. I got news for you. Sandy Hook woke me up. Woke me up. I didn't realize how far into our own homes the intruders really are, and we have welcomed them in. We have disconnected with our own why, even if we don't really know it. Let me tell you this story again. I told you, I think last week, that I was at Disney a couple of weeks ago on vacation, and I noticed I'm a visual guy, and I looked at the paint on the walls. I looked at the architecture. I was in part of the park. It's the new Fantasyland, and it was open the week before I got there, and everything was made to look old. It was a week old, and it looked like it had been standing there for 150 years. Forget the park. Let's go someplace else. Let's go to Abercrombie. You go into Abercrombie and you can buy a t-shirt that's like, Dick's Bull Moose Barbecue Stop. It's a new t-shirt, but it looks old. It's from Omaha, Nebraska. It's weathered. Even though it's brand new and you've never been to the barbecue place and you've never been to Nebraska. But you wear it because it looks like that old comfortable t-shirt that you've had forever. But it's fake. Everything in our society is fake. The awards and the trophies we give to our kids, they're fake. They don't mean anything. Adam Lanza, the shooter in Connecticut, said, "I just want to feel something," in the days leading up to the massacre. It's everywhere. Most importantly, it is in your own home. We have created a time period that sociologists will study for the next 100, if not 1,000 years. And speaking of studies, one has come out. And this will hopefully show you we've got to do something, and we've got to do something with our kids now. The study was how college students think that they are more special than ever. Study reveals rocketing sense of entitlement on U.S. campuses. If you've ever tried to hire anybody in business, you know this is true. It's strange because these people don't really come in through our doors. If you think you're going to get a job here and you're like this, you ain't going to get a job here. This is the reason why they're burning cars over in Europe at the mere mention of cuts. You owe it to me. This is the reason that unions won't budge. You owe it to me. The entitlement addicts that we all are, we're strung out on freebies and trophies that mean nothing, convinced somehow or another that we all deserve it. We don't. The American Freshman Survey has been conducted since 1966, not long after JFK declared this.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
They say attitude reflects leadership. The contrast between today's students from those days and the days of Kennedy certainly speaks to that. The survey revealed that students consider themselves above average in smarts, in drive, in self-confidence, even though the statistics show a decline in performance compared to the freshman class of 1960s. Where do the students give themselves lower marks? Well, I'm not really good at being cooperative. Oh boy. Understanding to others. And I'm not real spiritual. Oh. Great, so let me see if I have this right. You think you're totally awesome, even though you're not, and you don't care about anybody but you. Oh, that sounds like a good recipe for a nice, happy culture. We've already seen the death of shame, but now we are witnessing the death of humility and modesty and industry. The survey also shows kids study less and work less, but they expect to get more in return. This has led to what is now being called the ambition inflation. And when life inevitably deals a setback, they have no clue how to handle it. The solution, I think, is really two things. Why? Why are you here? Why were you born? What is your purpose? And two, community. Tonight I want to focus on community. When I say community, I mean community in your own family. Something that is real. We have to start at the basic building blocks. The community, the relationship between you and your kids. Just like Dick's barbecue t-shirts. It's not real. Nothing is real. The reason why we allow so much to happen in our family is because it's easier on us. I get home and I'm tired. We all are. But we have to get out of our virtual existence. Real communities are being systematically eliminated in America, replaced by a virtual world that doesn't exist. Think how many new electronic gadgets have flooded the shelves, but yet there is less communication than ever before. We have more things to make life easy, but we are more tired than ever. We're busier than we were before. The 92% of 18 to 29-year-olds who are using social networks are mostly doing it to be their own full-time PR team. Look how many likes I can get. How many retweets? Look, I am awesome. Look how I can make myself look like that. Ooh, I know, just let me post another bathroom mirror picture of myself. We are filling up the display window, but there's nothing in the room. That's what I think people really feel. They know this is a house of cards. Whether you can verbalize it or not, you know it's a house of cards and it will collapse. That imaginary friend in the sky we're not allowed to talk about anymore had a radical idea about self. Love thy neighbor as thyself. But that's no longer pursued. Instead, government has filled the role of God that originally signed for us to carry out. Ask not what my country can do for me, but what I can do for my country. What can I do for others? How can I help my neighbor? What do I have that I don't need that somebody else can use? These are the endangered questions. What are others doing for me? What do I get out of it? Do I get what I deserve? Though that's vogue. I'd love to see a man on the street video asking students why they deserve the best of everything. It'd be comical because the correct answer is nothing. But no one asks that question. Instead, indoctrination with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right there at the top is the self-actualization. Yes. That's what's taught at most colleges, and it's complete nonsense. Life isn't about the self. The world doesn't revolve around you. You will never be actualized or fulfilled by stuff or by yourself or a job. You're not owed anything. You're not better than anyone or everyone else. The country doesn't exist to give you stuff. Being born here doesn't grant you anything except a chance. But it's up to you to work for it. Everybody knows the commandment, keep the Sabbath day holy. Nobody does it. But you know that part. Oh yeah, I know, keep the Sabbath day holy. But they don't know the other part of that commandment. 6 days shall you labor and do all of your work. Translation, work's important. Get off your butt and do it. You're not owed anything. We've always done that, but somehow that attitude of self-determination has morphed into self-admiration. We admire ourselves. Progressives have taken a long-standing American value and blurred the lines, and we've done it with them because it's easier. This celebration of self has led us to a world where nothing is real. Fake trophies. You were in last place. Fake rich people. You're in massive debt. Fake beauty. It's collagen. fake athletic ability, steroids, fake reality shows. You have no talent. Fake economy, massive debt, fake friends, social networks, fake self-esteem, bogus definitions of self-worth. No bill from Congress, no executive order from the president. Nothing can cure this broken culture except us. Our ideas, our principles, rebuilding our foundation on things that are real and doing it ourselves is the only way out. Just remember the simple statement asked many years ago by a Democrat. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. It starts with you. You may be nodding your head in agreement, but by the end of the show, you might not be. Because you might be contributing to the problem just as much as I am without even knowing it. More in a second.
We've thrown a lot at you this year, and we're only halfway through January. You've got questions, we know.
When are we going to see changes?
Are things really as bad as they seem?
What can be done to fix this now?
What is it that goes through
How do
your
we
head?
convince our friends?
How can we turn our ideas into reality?
Glenn's got your answers.
Today is officially Ask Glenn Anything Day.
Anything. I'm ready for anything.
Your unrestricted access to Glenn and the Blaze starts this Friday. This is the network you're building. What can we do to help? Ask Glenn anything. Your questions, your comments, your concerns, your network. Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
So Lindsay Lohan, as we've said, continues to be all over the tabloids since allegedly punching a psychic, no less, who offered to give her a free reading, which she probably needs, in a New York nightclub. And when she was in police custody, Lindsay kept asking, why does this keep happening to me?
One thing about her that I will give her a pass on. She walks into this bar or something, and this annoying psychic person comes up to her and says, can I give you a reading? Get away from me.
I mean, what are we doing in our society? I want you to meet a couple of really intriguing people. The first one is Keith Campbell. He is the co-author of The Narcissism Epidemic, a psychology professor at the University of Georgia. Also, Kay Wills Wyma. She is a woman who has successfully shown that there is a cure if we identify the disease and dedicate ourselves to treating it. Her book is Cleaning House, a mom's 12-month experience to rid her home of youth entitlement. David Barton was on the show last night, and he said, Glenn, you're doing the show tomorrow. You have got to meet Kay. And I said, David, I think I have Kay on tomorrow, so I'm glad you're here. So, Keith, before we delve into how to fix it and some of the stuff that we were just talking about off the air, can you take us through the study and what we're supposed to learn from this study?
Well, what we're seeing is, you look at these big expanses of time, and we're talking 40, 50 years, what you see is over time, young people have gotten more and more positive about themselves. They think they're better than other people, and that keeps going up.
Does this come from us saying, you are so special? You are special, and here's a trophy for you?
That's part of it. I mean, part of it's the self-esteem movement. I mean, we have a whole chalkboard here of
you want
reasons.
You want to go over and explain this?
Go to the
chalkboard and explain what this is.
Yeah, we talked about 4 big cultural trends. I mean, one being the self-esteem movement. So we have examples like with names today. Kids want or parents want their kids to have special, unique names. So we see it in the celebrities where their names are things like Blue Ivy or Inspector Gadget or whatever they. Right. That was close. Right. So we see the change in names, and what people forget about that is when we share the same name, we're connected to people. So I look at my father-in-law who just passed away, great guy from Brooklyn named Edward. Everybody in his family is Edward. Eddie, Big Eddie, Fast Eddie. But they all felt connected. They didn't feel special, they felt connected. Mm-hmm. Now we want our kids to feel special. We do things in education, so we try to give kids self-esteem by making them feel special. So example is the I Am Special song my daughter sang in preschool. I am special, look at me.
Okay, hang on just so where is the line here? Because we are all created in God's image. We're here for a purpose. We have a special reason, each of us, but it's not better than the other person. Right. So how do we...
I think it's just saying I'm a person of value, I'm a person of worth. Okay. I have dignity.
I count.
I matter. But not I'm better than you.
Right, okay.
Not look at me, I'm special, look at me, you will see someone special. I mean...
Yeah, got it. Got it. Makes sense.
Too much. But that's one of the balances. Self-esteem isn't as good. It's not so bad. Narcissism, which is that over-the-top specialness, is a problem. And then we have a change in celebrity culture, the example we just gave, where we have, I mean, my daughter a couple days ago said, Daddy, why are rich people so stupid? And because she was watching TV and seeing these celebrities on television. And we have the interesting case of reality television where we take people who are narcissistic. I mean, we have data that the highest group of narcissism celebrities, which is a pretty high group, no offense, I mean, just that's what you get, probably get the same with professors, are reality television stars. And then we put them in situations where they have conflict with each other. Then we give them alcohol. Then we selectively edit it till it's horribly dysfunctional. Then we say, okay, here's reality. And you and I watch it and we go, this is crazy.
You know, I remember the first time I watched Survivor, I thought it was pretty good, but they learned after the first episode, it's to knife each other in the back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That was the learning.
Right. I mean, I wanted to start a reality show where we take a bunch of people out into survival mode, and at the end of each episode, if you did something that caused someone else to be harmed, you lose points. You know what I mean? You have to have each other to survive. That's not being taught.
But that's how we were built. I mean, we have to do that.
Right.
You put me alone in the tundra, I'm going to be polar bear food.
Right. Right. All of us.
All of us would be, yeah. But that's not how those shows work. And our kids watch this and they go, I want a car like that.
Sure.
And you know, my daughter wants, I want a pink Mercedes.
Right.
Like not just a normal Mercedes. She's 8 years old. Then we have these changes in emerging media, the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these things I think are positive. They can all be used for good ends and for bad ends. But what we find on Facebook with narcissism is these are the people who have the most friends. They have the most self-promoting, the most provocative photos. And so when you go on your Facebook account and you say, gee, here are all my friends, you're going to get a lot of narcissism out there, a lot of self-promotion. You can say, look at everybody's world, it's so special, not mine. I feel kind of bad, you know. So it's like that Woody Allen movie where you're in the bus that's depressing, and then there's the party bus next door. It's an obscure reference, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Woody Allen is
little dated, okay? Yeah. I'll skip. And finally, there's been this giant increase in credit in our culture, and these all start, you know, and this is back to 1970, but it's exploded now. And I always think of credit as like your fairy godmother. You can be anything you want until the bill's due. And so we've had people buy houses, buy stuff they can't afford, and then you go, God, that person has this beautiful house. I want that house too. And you go buy it, and the whole culture gets filled with debt. That bubble collapses, and we should readjust, but we don't. You know, it should be one of those things like, take the tequila away, we had a big night, but now let's get sober and clean up. But instead, they dump more debt on us. So we've got kids today have $1 trillion in student loan debt, non-dischargeable debt. So we're doing it, the government's now taking over the debt role.
Okay, so what does that lead us to in the end? It doesn't sound like this is really good at all. Come on over here and sit down.
I think when I start thinking long term, this shouldn't work. I mean, you shouldn't be able to have a society where people are famous for doing nothing, which is based on debt that doesn't exist, where kids grow up and say, I want to be stupid so I can be rich. I mean, that shouldn't function for a long time. It should collapse, but it hasn't. And that's the real question.
Here's something that if you look at this study, if I'm not mistaken, things continue to get worse, even though we should have a reset.
Yes.
Should we not?
That's exactly what, yes. Just like in the Great Depression. You have the Roaring 20s, then you have the Great Depression, people get back to work, and you have the Greatest Generation. And we should have some sort of reset. Say, hey, look,
not.
It doesn't seem to be. No, I think what's going on, and I don't have data for this yet, but I think what's going on is a lot of people just moving to sort of worlds of fantasy to get esteem. Going online, trying to get esteem from something else rather than from their own work.
I want you to remember that because tomorrow we're going to talk about technology. And technology, just like all of this stuff, it's not, if you recognize that it is fire, fire is not bad. You need fire to cook. Technology is not bad. You just have to recognize the damage that it can do. This virtual world is really frightening to me because IBM said computers are going to be able to have all 5 senses in 3 years. In 5 years, realistic sex online with virtual people. And I try to think, how are you going to date? Why would you date? If I'm a guy and Ray Kurzweil, the head of emerging technology for artificial intelligence at Google, he told me, he said, Glenn, within 5 years, your computer will be able to read your mind. Well, if I can have my computer read my mind and I can design a woman that I can have sex with and have interrelations with all the time, when I come home, I just put the goggles on, why would I date? What an amazingly bad chore that would be. I remember what it was like when I was dating. It's awful. It's awful.
Well, and kids don't really have that opportunity even now because, you know, going off the technology movement with the texting and everything, that's one of the problems is the lack of interpersonal communication skills.
Correct.
Which leads to this narcissism. And, you know, narcissism is so far beyond self-absorbment, you know, absorption, because nothing works with a narcissist. They cannot enter into relationship because they can't think of anybody other than themselves.
So it is impending collapse. It has to, because the society cannot go on. You become psychopaths. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. This should not keep going. We should reset at some point. It should happen.
That could be bad.
Just don't see it happening.
You don't see it happening now at all.
Not yet.
No, but there's hope on the horizon.
No, there is, because I think more and more people are getting it, and they're getting it more of like, look at those people over there. They're starting to say, ooh, what am I doing? What am I doing to help create this? Back in a minute.
School is like no other. You walk in, and your skin, you start turning black. You really do. And I don't understand, because I'm white. It's not a tan. You wanna start being black. You wanna turn.
I am making a video to answer all the questions I got about my racist post. Actually, not questions. The hate mail I got. And then all of a sudden, when I'm about to like reach an epiphany, overhear from somewhere, oh, Ching Chong Ling Long Ting Tong. Oh. Are you freaking kidding me? In the middle of finals week. So being the polite, nice American girl that my mama raised me to be, I kind of just gave him what anybody else would do, that kind of like,
you going to jail?
What amazes me is we are in a culture of fame. You'll be famous for anything.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be famous for being infamous.
Right.
And somehow or another it's good. We were talking about hope that I think more people are waking up.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are starting to wake up that maybe it's in their own homes. And they don't necessarily know what the problem is.
Right.
Our children think that we are being stick in the muds because we didn't grow up with the technology that they have now, but we can see the damage that it is. It's a wrecking ball in our lives. And before we went on the air, I said that this last Saturday I went bowling with my kids. My older kids had not been bowling since they were 10. And as I sat there and I was bowling with them, we bowled for 2 hours, and I remembered bowling with my father and watching him bowl on his Tuesday night league, and we had a blast.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, there's nothing more low tech than bowling.
Right.
And we had a blast, and there's nothing that will replace that. We virtual bowl with Wii. It's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same. So what's the secret? Because you didn't get it in your own life, right? And then
was I enabled in my life growing up?
Yeah.
Yes, I was. We had a housekeeper that came in every day. So believe it or not, yes, I would totally fall in that category. However, there was a big difference. We may have been given a lot of stuff. My dad was quick to say, you'll never have this. By the way, you are blessed right now, don't expect it. And there was a work ethic that was absolutely required. We never did anything halfway. We never were allowed to quit. We never were allowed to think we were better than somebody else. And on it went. And our schedules never dictated our family. I sat many a night at the tennis court waiting for my mother to come pick me up, who said, you can wait or you can walk. I don't really care. And therein put the pecking order probably where it should be. We all were required to do things around our house. And the interesting thing about it is that when you're required to do stuff, you belong. Okay, so that video, as a mother, I'm just going to tell you, that crushes my heart, because those girls in that video are the ages of my daughters, and I watch that coming in and out of my house all the time, Glenn, and it's staggering, because right then and there is shaky ground for these kids, because they post that stuff and they look for the likes. And then they go and they research the likes to see who liked it, because apparently you can check your stream to see if someone liked you and if they liked somebody, and they're looking for this stuff. And so their self-esteem is based on that.
It validates, and it's not based on anything.
No, and that's so dangerous. Okay, so right there, as a parent, I can tell you I do not want that. Because I don't think that about my kids. Nobody does. You know, we really do believe that our kids can do anything they put their minds to, because guess what? They're gifted and they're actually have a lot of talents and they're incredible, okay? But when we race in and do everything for them before they do it, or we set them up for success because we love them, or we do their science projects because we don't want them to be embarrassed by the kid next to them, or we check every single homework because we don't want them to not get 100 because their buddy next to him is going to have 100, all in the name of self-esteem. Those kids know, and they hear an implied message, well, I can't do it. My parents wouldn't race in and do it for me, which is that implied message that, let me tell you, that one is super loud and clear. I think all the words we spew is like a Far Side cartoon, you know, the blah, 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 blah. And they hear the other so loud and clear. And it's one of those things, as you realize it, it's like, ooh, but can I let my kid turn in the science project without getting my hands involved? Therein lies the question.
You said to me earlier today that most, what is it, 50% of all?
Right, that's the latest study.
Explain this.
The latest study, which kind of would make all of our jaws drop, is that, because we would never imagine in your wildest dreams, is that 50% of the kids going into employment, their parents are involved. And you can actually back that up to colleges too, because parents are so involved in the college experiences, from doing the applications to buying the books and everything. And when they hit the employment scene, they can't stop themselves. And so they get involved. A third actually communicate with the Human Resources Department.
Oh my gosh, they would be fast tracked to hell. Yeah. You would never get a job with me.
Well, it's fascinating, and 3% actually have attended the interviews with their children.
Oh my God.
Okay, and so there are divisions and companies that are having to be created to handle the parents, and companies aren't stupid. They're gonna, once those parents are involved and calling and saying, why didn't Joey get the promotion? Why aren't they in the office? All these kinds of things. They have now started to involve the parents, because therein comes your consumer. So why not just go ahead and embrace the change versus be as appalled as it clearly is appalling. But the saddest thing behind it all is that
I don't want to be successful if that's the way you have to be successful. I refuse to do that. Well, I told you, when you said that to me, I told you, my daughter, she works for the publishing division. Head of the publishing division said, I'm interviewing your daughter. Did you know that? And I said, she didn't tell me that, but that's great. Well, what exactly? I don't care. Hire her, don't hire her on her merits. I was uninvolved at 100%. She came in with a resume. I didn't tell her to make a resume. Nobody said, she didn't. She's the boss's daughter. Right. She comes in with a resume and she makes a pitch. She did it all herself. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
And everybody should do that. You get it on your merits, not because of your station, not because of who you are. You get it on your merits. And if my company had to be successful, to be successful, I had to work with those. No, I won't do that. I won't do that. Am I alone in that?
I don't know.
Probably.
I think so. But the kid knows too. That's the whole thing. That kid knows. And therein, you know, as a parent, what's the motivation to go swim upstream? Because you're swimming upstream. If you put your kid out and not race in and get them on the teams that they're supposed to be on, because if they're not on the right soccer team by the time they're 5, then they won't be on the select soccer team. And then if they're not on that team, well, it's so fascinating. But people really do care. It's
I lived in Manhattan.
I'm not competitive, weird, peer pressure
kindergarten.
For parenting.
There's an application process in kindergarten.
Yeah.
and they will tell you, if you don't have your kid in the right first grade class, they will not get into this college. And you're like, I don't really care. I don't care about that. I mean, we are setting our kids up. What college is doing, especially if you do all of these things, all you're saying is check all of these boxes and then you are guaranteed this. So if I checked all the right, you were in the right kindergarten, you're in the right first grade, you're in the right 8th grade, you took the right courses. When I get to college and Harvard says no, then I'm pissed at Harvard and I say, wait a minute, I did all this. There's no guarantee in life. And so aren't we furthering exactly what...
Oh, yeah, you're building kids that aren't resilient. Because all they know is they're like chickens and you throw a breadcrumb in front of them, they keep pecking it. But when the breadcrumbs go away or there's 10 of them, they don't know what to do. It's like they get out of college, what do I do now? I've always been following one reward after another.
Have you looked at the studies at all and seen what's next after this? If this isn't corrected, what is the next step? What's beyond this?
I think that's a real challenging question, and what we're seeing now is this gap in our culture where people are becoming sexualized younger and younger. Right. I mean, we just know that from the medical data, and they're hitting the markers of adulthood later and later. So now, you know, they get average marriage is about 27, and so we have this gigantic gap of adolescence. We talk about it as an emerging adulthood period or adolescence. Basically, we have a huge group of adult adolescents running around, and it's terrifying, but they buy a lot of products, so we like it.
Don't you think that the marriage getting later and later is because it's still about me? And the culture is saying there's something wrong with you if you want to pair with somebody at that age. Yeah. And then having fewer and fewer children because it limits your opportunities. It puts you got 4 kids, I'm at home, I've got the baby, I can't get a babysitter. And so why would I want to, again, it's not about... It's about you. Everything that we're seeing is showing us it's about the individual and not about anything that's important.
Yeah, the other trend in there, though, to remember is a lot of this is women's education. And so women are becoming educated later, and that sort of puts the whole family off. You know, women go to grad school. That's part of it, too. Okay. But a lot of it is take care of me.
Back in a minute.
My name is Clarice Precious Jones. I want to be on the cover of a magazine. I wish I had a light-skinned boyfriend with real nice hair. But first I want to be in one of them BET videos.
Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about actual solutions. And you were just saying solutions are very, very easy because they're everywhere in your house.
Yeah, and you know, so often everywhere in life, because narcissism, what is narcissism? Like the epitome of self-absorption. Is it good? No, because it's clinical and it never can be good. Your life cannot be productive if you're completely focused on yourself, because you can't get outside of yourself, which is a problem. So enter in your house. You know, every house has tasks that are in, and this is what I found so interesting. I started our little experiment because I was mad at my kids. I was sick of them thinking that I was there to serve them. And you know, there was one too many dish left out and one too many bed left unmade. And I was frustrated as a mother. And I was like, it's over. You will now be doing everything. And it was about on month 2 when our kitchen, you know, I kind of said, you're going to do everything in the kitchen. You're going to come up with the meal, you're going to cook, you're going to clean. At that point, they ranged, the little one was 3 and the oldest was 14. So the 8-year-old was a tiny bit slow on the uptake, so he was the first one to have to do all the dinner. And as I took him moaning and groaning and complaining and yelling, "You're such a mean mom," all the way into the grocery store to everyone, because he didn't care, you know. And we started going around the grocery store, and I learned very quickly I had never shown him a grocery store. I'd leave them in the car. I'd even hire a babysitter to come sit in the car so that I wouldn't have to take them in with me, because it was so much easier. I wish I was joking.
No. I'm just thinking.
Because it was so much easier. Yes, it's easier. I get it done. It's fast. All the reasons why we step in. And then to watch that kid have an economics lesson at the butter, because there's so many different kinds of butter. Why are there so many kinds of butter? Why do they cost different amount of money? And right there, he started to own his experience. So by the time we were checking out, he took all of the groceries, loaded them onto the conveyor belt, used, my money to pay for them. We got in the car, we get home, the kid unloaded our car, which I can't even begin to think of the last time that happened without me berating them, get the stuff out of the car. And then to watch him clean the kitchen, literally cook, which for his age consisted of combining things, set the table, serve a meal in front of his siblings. So you had a whole lot of other-centered right in that moment, serving others, cooking for others, and then setting himself up to be judged. And seriously, your family's the worst critic, And there he sat, doing all this, and I've never seen him so confident or proud as I did sitting at that table. And Glenn, it was at that moment that I really had to apologize and say, I'm so sorry what I've been stripping from you every single day that I step in and do these things, because I love you, because you're too busy.
Can we come to your house with cameras and meet your children?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yes, but you have to be ready to realize that we're real. That
no, I know that.
It's not a past tense thing. We deal with it, but we're putting one foot in front of the other. And it's fun to watch these kids. It takes mountains and changes them from obstacles to opportunities. And that's really where they start to go, I can do so much more than I thought I could.
So Keith, where do you think in a bigger picture, or if you can get to the small picture, where do you think we start?
Well, I think two of the most important things are compassion and responsibility taking. Those are the two of the big buffers against narcissism. That's exactly what you're, instilling in your children by doing this.
Really, because it's compassion for your mom.
Yeah,
have compassion for your mom.
It's a connection. It's in connection for the kids. It's just a sense of it's a connectedness.
Yeah.
It's a connectedness. I'm doing this, so I like that.
I know.
The other piece that people don't think about as often, I'll throw out there, is passion. When people do things they're passionate about, they're not doing it because they look good. They're not doing it to get attention or because they want to fit in. When they do stuff they love, when they're intrinsically motivated, ego drops away in the process. Sometimes we talk about it as a flow state. You get skiing or swimming or surfing or something. So that's a real good buffer for narcissism. And the other thing I think is really important are natural consequences. The idea that setting up a world for your kid that when they fail, it acts back and they know it. So I go surfing, and whenever I'm out in California, and occasionally I'll get a big head and go, I can do this. I'm 18.
And consequence.
I get consequences. And I learn.
Yep. Okay, 2 books. The Narcissism Epidemic, Living in the Age of Entitlement, and this book will explain to you this is not just a rich person's problem. This is in the poorest of poor communities. And Cleaning House, 2 books. I hope you see why we're not talking directly about gun control today. We have to fix ourselves and our children first, or we're going to need a babysitter in a government to tell us exactly when they can and can't use guns, or when they can and can't. They'll have to wait for the first responder instead of being one. Back in just a minute. I hope you see why the direction in which we are headed this year. We have to recalibrate our compass and strengthen ourselves. And I hope that these conversations that we will have every day will become much more of a family activity to help you and your family, and also to be able to share with your family. Now on Monday, it's going to be the Misfits Ball. You don't want to miss this. It's a black tie event. And on Wednesday, debunking the Sandy Hook conspiracies. And on Thursday, families of Sandy Hook will be here. From Dallas, good night, America.